I know I likely am, but the extent of which I'm unsure about. My son is almost 17. This Christmas we bought him an expensive computer gaming chair, as he plays a lot of online multiplayer shooters. My son has some anger issues, which he's currently in therapy for, and these shooters tend to bring out his temper more than normal. However, for the past few months, he's been keeping it together well, so I figured the chair might be a fair present. I was wrong, because the day after Christmas he was gaming, started to have bad luck, and apparently people in game were freaking with him because he was losing his patience. This culminated in him screaming insults and then picking up his chair and slamming it into the ground, breaking the back of it. After talking him down, we had a very serious conversation about him no longer being allowed to play multiplayer games while under my roof until his therapist feels comfortable with his progress, talked about coping mechanisms, etc. However, I made it very clear this was unacceptable and he would be grounded. We've had these heart-to-hearts many times, so it's not like every time he has an outburst I'm making light of it. It's a serious issue and treated like such. However, when he came to me later that day and told me he'd like me to replace the chair because it was a gift, he really liked it and it would only be fair, the frustration, disbelief, and disappointment in his behavior boiled over and I started laughing hysterically. As in a full laughing fit, barely able to breathe or talk. The more he'd plead his case, the harder I'd laugh, repeatedly asking him how it was fair in his mind to have me replace a gift I paid for that he broke in anger. This obviously pissed him off more, which led to him getting emotional, but I just couldn't seem to stop myself. I tried walking out of the room and asking him to drop it, but every time he'd say "but I need a chair," or "what am I supposed to do now?" I'd laugh again. I tried explaining that I'm not laughing at his feelings, I'm laughing at how absurd it is for him as a teenager to expect me to replace crap he can't be bothered to treat with respect and then whine about it when he broke it. He's still pissed about it and feels slighted. I feel bad for laughing and honestly wonder if I had some sort of mini stress break myself because it's never happened before and I couldn't seem to stop. But at the same time, I stand by the fact that his request was ridiculous enough to make most people want to laugh. How badly did I freak up? Not the idiot. It sounds like you had an uncontrollable response to his request. If you made the attempt to excuse yourself and explained that it wasn't regarding his feelings, but rather his behavior, then I think you're fine, but it's something that you should definitely speak to him about again when you have better control over yourself. Does he have a job? If not, maybe he should consider getting one. This will limit his available time to even play these games, and then he can also save up money to replace the chair on his own. This is hard, but I think I'm going to have to go with everyone's the idiot here. Your son for breaking the chair and then asking for a new one. You for laughing so hard and long, even though I can understand why you did it. Also for continuing to allow him to play these games when you know how he reacts to them. You shouldn't replace the chair and shouldn't allow him to continue to play these games, but if he does show improvement, maybe give him some kind of reward that's not these games. Everyone's the idiot here. Your son has a hard time with games like this and is seeing a therapist about it. Why are you still letting him play these games if they impact him this way? Did his therapist say it was okay, or did they recommend he take a break? As far as laughing at him, yeah, I get it, kids screw sometimes, but there is no way it was that funny to you, where you couldn't have controlled yourself better. You essentially taunted him into having another emotional episode. I'm a 29-year-old white guy. My wife is 30 and black. We have 2 kids, a 3-year-old girl and a 5-year-old boy. My wife got pregnant with our son early in our relationship. We had only been together a year. We got married because she got pregnant. Fortunately for us, we were actually happy. When my son was born, I accepted him as mine. However, I couldn't help noticing how little he looked like me. He is noticeably darker than my wife. He doesn't look half white. My family and friends have asked if I'm sure he's mine. I had doubts, but I initially decided to trust my wife. I loved my son regardless. When our son was 2, my wife had our daughter. I had no doubt she's mine. She looks just like me, she even has my blue eyes. I never realized how powerful it is to know a child is yours. I bonded with her easier because there wasn't the question of paternity dangling over our heads. My family bonded with her faster too. Her resemblance to me convinced me that my son is not mine. I tried to always treat them equally as I see them both as my children. But I realized I was beginning to resent my son. It felt unfair that I had to care for someone else's child. I also began to resent my wife because I felt she had betrayed me. I finally got a paternity test in secret. I was relieved to learn that my son is in fact mine. Genetics are weird. Anyways, that was 4 months ago, and my relationship with my wife and son improved dramatically. I feel much closer to him now that I know he's mine. My wife and I have been so happy that we were talking about a third child. I confessed to my wife I got a paternity test. I hated keeping the secret and I thought she would understand given how much he doesn't look like me. She flipped out. She asked me if I ever doubted our daughter, and when I said no, she called me bad people. It's not true. I didn't prefer my daughter because of her wider features, I just knew she was mine. She also said that I made our son feel unloved for no reason for all those years. I said that's bull. Even when I didn't believe my son was mine, I treated him as though he were. My wife says she wants to move out and take our children after the quarantine. It's been about a week and a half and I'm still on the sofa. I hope she would have calmed down by now, but things haven't changed. She's just so furious with me for not trusting her and for, in her eyes, denying my son because he's dark. She barely talks to me unless it's about the kids. I don't want to lose my family. Here's where I turn to you. Is it so awful that I had doubts? I still took care of him. I don't understand why something like this is wrecking my marriage. I think she is overreacting. So, am I the idiot? You're the idiot. She is absolutely not overreacting. You not only did not trust your wife, but you also let your ignorance get in the way of you bonding with your child. I mean, what did you think was going to happen when you had biracial children? It's not always a perfect matcha mixture of both parents. You may get that, you may get a kid who is white as a vampire or as dark as Wesley Snipes. You really need to swallow it up and beg for forgiveness, and then you need to fix that ignorant way of thinking that you have. Your son is going to need you. You're the idiot. If you had suspicions, you should have discussed with your wife first. You went behind her back to get a paternity test, which is definitely a big no in my view. You waited so long to clear your suspicions, you did not bond with your son, thereby making him feel left out. Before resolving your suspicions, you went for a second kid. Your oldest must have clearly felt his father showing differences in how he treats his 2 kids. You felt guilty of your actions and revealed the test to your wife. If you were really that self-righteous, you would have not gone behind her back. You're the idiot. Why did you tell her about the test? What possible good could have come from it? She has every right to be mad at you. You basically told her you didn't trust her and that she must have cheated on you. Plus, you even admitted you bonded quicker with your daughter and that your family did as well. Maybe your wife is now wondering if you and your family prefer the daughter over your son because she's not as dark as him. She has plenty to be mad about, and I don't blame her one bit. My boyfriend and I have been living together for several months. About a week ago, I had a biking accident which left in pretty rough shape, the worst of it being a broken arm. My boyfriend has been incredibly supportive, driving me to all of my doctor's appointments, helping me to get dressed, and generally helping me to do the things that I can't do with one broken arm. That being said, he has been making jokes that make me uncomfortable and upset, and I wonder if I'm overreacting. The first incident was the morning after the accident. He thought it would be funny to throw his used tissue at me, since I obviously couldn't catch it. In pain and frustrated and exhausted from the events of the past few hours, I reacted by bursting into tears. He told me I was overreacting and being too sensitive, and I somewhat agreed that it may have been over the top, but 3 days later, he tossed a pair of shorts at me and yelled catch. As expected, I was extremely upset since we had talked about this, and my reaction was again tears. Later that night he joked about how I must not be attracted to him anymore since we hadn't made love in a few days. I explained that I was in a lot of pain, but he persisted for about 45 minutes of pouting and whining until I grew severely agitated. He then insisted he was joking and how he had never met anyone as easily offended as me. This brings us to last night. We were at a friend's house, surrounded by people, when an acquaintance asked what I was doing with my time, since I'm unable to work for the time being. As I was about to answer, my boyfriend jutted in and said, being a waste of space. When I told him later that I was upset by that, he insisted that he was joking and I shouldn't be so sensitive. The truth is, I feel really crappy for being mad at him and upset after all he's doing to help me out. He had to help me shower the first few days, has helped me with cooking, and has taken me to 5 doctor's appointments this week, not including the night he spent with me in the emergency room. So tell me, am I being an ungrateful idiot for harboring anger toward him? Not the idiot. People who are saying you overreacted to the tissue throwing are glossing over the fact that you tried to communicate with him that you needed more sensitivity and less joking, yet he did it again with the shorts. That's really awful. Pressuring you for making love after you've explained you're not ready is very disturbing. The whole insisting every awful thing he says and does is a joke you're too uptight to appreciate is tiresome, immature, and at worst abusive. Not the idiot. The fact that he's been helping you out doesn't mean he gets to do whatever he wants. To be honest, he just sounds really immature. Look at it this way, even if you are too sensitive or however he wants to put it, he's still a jerk to tease you in ways he knows will upset you. He either cares about hurting your feelings or he doesn't. If he does, he'll learn how you need to be treated. If he doesn't, then you should know that you don't have to put up with it. You're not the idiot, but I don't think he is either, at least not intentionally. He is definitely being inconsiderate, but it could be how he's coping with the situation. I understand he didn't get hurt, but he is doing a lot for you as you've mentioned. I don't think it's okay to constantly make jokes about it, but he probably doesn't know how to cope any other way. I'm saying this from experience. In stressed out situations I make stupid and offensive jokes which normally make things worse. Some context. I am 22, graduating in the class of 2020, and because of the current recession, I have thus far been unable to find a job in my field. Anxiety around this began in April, when I lost my part-time job and my offer for my full-time post-graduation position was pulled. I asked my parents for financial help to pay rent and buy groceries, but they basically said that struggle builds character and that I need to pull myself by the bootstraps and figure it out on my own. Mom sent $150 for groceries, but that's it. They also claimed me as a dependent, even though I've been financially independent for about a year, so I didn't get my $1,200 stimulus check. Thankfully, my wonderful roommate agreed to lend me some money so I could make rent for May, but I knew I need to figure something out fast. Since then, I've had to get jobs at 2 separate grocery stores and work 60 or 70 hours per week to pay back my roommate, make rent for June, pay bills and buy groceries. My parents didn't only not give me a dime, they also started berating me for getting a service job. Dad keeps calling us the generation of whining snowflakes and saying how I chose the easy way out instead of putting my degree to use. For the entire month of May, I endured almost every day of snide comments from my father about how I'm not trying hard enough, how my degree was a waste of money for him, how it's embarrassing for him to tell his friends and relatives that his daughter is a grocery packer. Things took a turn last week. Dad lost his fancy consulting job since his company no longer has enough clients to go around. Mom still has her job, but doesn't make nearly enough money to keep them afloat and pay mortgage, car mortgage and insurance, hydro, internet, etc. Apparently, and I didn't know this since we've been fighting, they spent the entirety their rainy day fund on getting a pool installed in the backyard last month since they were so sure that they're financially safe. Apparently, Dad's severance will only last them a few weeks since they're used to spending lifestyles, as my mom puts it. So my dad reached out this weekend and asked me to send him some money. I couldn't believe how the tables had turned, so I refused. I said I don't owe him anything in light of the events that have transpired over the last month. I said they can figure it out with the stimulus checks that they stole from me. Mom and Dad now won't talk to me. They told all our extended family about how unbelievably selfish I am. I'm afraid the bridge has been burned, at least for a while. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. They literally screwed you over and now they're trying to weasel out of it. Going and bad-mouthing you to the rest of the family was a low blow. As far as the stimulus thing, that's possibly tax fraud. They didn't just steal that money from you, they ripped off the government. Use your name to do it. They should be old enough and experienced enough to be able to protect themselves. They got complacent. What's happening now is entirely on them. You don't owe them anything after what they put you through. So, not the idiot. You have boomer parents that could go to college in their youth with money earned from a part-time summer job. That whole bootstrap, trickle down, Reaganomics thinking from the me generation has crippled every generation since, and I'm late Gen X or early millennial myself. No, you're not the idiot, and you're barely making it. It's not your fault 2020 is in flames, but it's absolutely their fault that they put in a pool and didn't plan ahead, just like I see so many of that generation do. Not the idiot. I agree with others that have said, send your mom $150 to cover groceries until they can pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Also, it's unlikely the parents even got the $1,200 because college students 18 plus whose parents claimed them were not included in the stimulus. Your parents have houses, cars, etc. They are in a way better position to ride this out until they can collect retirement than you were as a young person just starting out. My wife and I are in our 60s and nearing retirement. We have 3 sons in their 20s and 30s, the older 2 are married, and the oldest has a 1-year-old son. We all live within an hour of each other, but due to the pandemic, we have not gotten together much the last 6 months. We even had to do a Zoom call for my grandson's first birthday, since his parents didn't want a group gathering. But Thanksgiving coming up, we have all been staying home and taking every precaution so that we can all get together for the holiday. My oldest son and his wife will be hosting. The other day in the family group chat, my 2 dills and my wife were venting about the pandemic and how hard and exhausting it all has been trying to juggle working from home, childcare, family, etc. I made a light-hearted joke about them toughening up and told them all to grow a pair. My oldest son's wife sent a long message about how that kind of language is damaging and that if I ever said anything like that to her son, that it would be the last thing I said to him. She also sent a link to an article about toxic masculinity. I read the article and then sent my daughter-in-law a private message telling her that I read it but that I don't agree with it and she should stop whining. She didn't respond, so the next morning I sent her another message telling her we should strive to have a complaint-free day. She didn't respond to that either. Well, last night, my oldest son called to tell us that they will no longer be hosting Thanksgiving. He said that their daycare had a COVID scare and they have to get their son tested. He said that they no longer want to host and will be staying home as a family instead. My wife is very upset by this as she loves family holidays and not having all her sons around this year has been very hard on her. I called my son to tell him this and to try to change his mind. I told him that as long as their son tests negative, that there is no reason we can't all still get together. I told him that we have all been staying home and taking precautions, and I didn't want that to be for nothing, and that his mother is distraught over this. He told me this wasn't a debate or a negotiation, he and his wife have made their decision. He then said he loved me, but that I'm an idiot and should stop whining and complaining, then he hung up. My wife is still very upset that we won't see everyone for the holiday, but now she's also pissed off at me because apparently my son and daughter-in-law told her what I said to daughter-in-law and my wife agrees with them that I was a jerk. You're the idiot. You don't have to agree with her on her points about toxic masculinity, but she did make her stance very clear to you. And you stomped around and stupidly poked the bear with that complaint-free day crap that you knew was rude, and now you're what? Surprised and upset she's doing what she said she'd do. Upset that she has boundaries and is enforcing them. Whining about not getting your way. Yep. All of those things. So let me get this straight. You insulted her. She explained to you why she was hurt and even sent you an article to explain. You decided this wasn't good enough and that she needs to stop complaining. She then makes a sensible decision for her family, whether you see that or not, and your reaction was to complain and hassle them because you aren't getting your way. I can't imagine how you could possibly not be the idiot. You are the idiot.